1.
All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the second Youtini Roundtable book discussion. Tonight, we are going to be discussing Solo, A Star Wars Story, the Expanded Edition. So here we go with the cover. I want to just welcome everyone that's here tonight. We're going to go around one at a time to introduce ourselves first. So Corey, let's start with you.
Sure. So I'm Corey Helton. I'm founder and CEO of Youtini. I think I would give the Solo novelization. Oh man, I should have given this a little more thought. I think I would give it a solid 9. I think I would give it a solid 9. A solid 9 out of 10.
All right, great. Heather, what about you?
Okay, so I'm Heather, and I manage social media and email marketing. And I'm going to go with Corey. I'm going to give it a 10. I mean, sorry, not a 10, a 9. Maybe a 10 after we're done. Who knows?
All right, great. And Meg?
Hi, I'm Meg. I write for the Youtini blog and one of our newsletters, and I'm going to give Solo, at this moment, an 8.
Okay. And Eric?
I'm Eric. I'm the blog editor-in-chief or managing editor of Youtini, and I also do a little writing. And I'm going to give it a 9 right now.
Okay, fantastic. I'm kind of with you guys. My name is Charles. I'm a writer and user analyst, and I'm going to try to keep this panel of Youtini members from getting too rowdy here tonight.
No promises.
No promises whatsoever. I'm going to give it a 9 as well. So we're going to come back to that. We have a whole lot to discuss in not enough time. We could be here all night. So really the way I want to tackle this is to, we all know the story. We all saw the movie. We all read the book, right? So I want to hit on major plot points by talking about characters. Because for me, Star Wars is about characters, character development. And I want to start off with the titular character himself, Han. So first of all, did Han in this book feel like Han to you guys from the original trilogy, from The Force Awakens? Did he fit in with your idea of Han? Eric, let's start with you this time.
Absolutely. I'm going to say that from, when Solo got announced all the way through reading the books that were released along with it, to seeing the movie a bunch of times, to finally reading this novelization, I am all in on this version of Han. He reads as legitimate. He fits in whatever my mind thought of Han as a kid all the way up until now. There's no moments I really had of finding discrepancies between things he did or how he spoke or how he thought, which is a huge compliment to Mur Lafferty. This is my Han.
Fantastic. Okay, Heather, what'd you think?
I definitely think that both the movie and novel captured Han. When the movie was first being talked about, I wasn't quite sure if they would be able to pull it off, but I think Alden did a very good job, and his presence really stuck with me throughout this novel. Whenever Han's dialogue would come up, just his face is just right there. I can hear him clearly.
Fantastic. Meg, where did it work for you? Where did it not work for you, if anywhere?
I have to agree with Eric and Heather. That's definitely, especially like the dialogue in the novel, like that's definitely Han for me. Like there's no question, same character, she did a great job with his inner dialogue, with his characterization, with, the dialogue with other characters. I'm happy.
Great. Corey?
Totally. I totally agree with everything everybody's saying. Honestly, I really wish they would have released this book like they used to release the books, like a little bit before the movie came out, because Alden did a fantastic job in the film. I thought that he seemed like Han, except he was different. It was something new. It wasn't the same Harrison Ford acting we've always seen. But the novelization, man, this thing felt like straight Legends for me. Like it felt like Legends Han to me. I really, really liked him. I thought it was perfect. The dialogue was excellent. It felt like the Crispin books, and
yes,
I love that.
Yes, and we're going to come back to that. I'd love to talk about the AC Crispin books, but let's talk quickly about the other canon books that we got with this same Han, at least for part of the book. So I know maybe not everyone, but most of us here on the panel also read Last Shot and Most Wanted. Anyone that wants to jump in that read those books, did those help your experience with the movie and this book as well, or what did they bring that helped you accept this Han?
Yeah, for sure. I think that the order of release was masterful. We talked about this with Most Wanted months ago, but it seems like whoever decided on their release schedule somehow read all three manuscripts and released them in perfect order. I think
Mhm.
that Last Shot is great to get you ready for Solo. Most Wanted was their opening weekend when I was super like hot and excited, and then the novelization kind of guided me right into DVD. So they all worked together well. They were all the same consistent tone of Han, and I
Mhm.
think all three writers really lived within the same world, which is not always the case with Star Wars books.
So Disney
Yeah,
knows
I
what they're doing.
Yeah, I totally agree with that too because like you said, the order that it was in was very perfect because I mean, if you think about it, like Last Shot was like about the Han Solo that we've seen so far in the sequel series, right? It was old Han, he was grumpy Han. It was like, what we imagined him to be. And then we got the film, right? And then immediately after we got the film, or I guess really about the same time the film came out. I think it was released like a day. Maybe it was the same day actually. Most Wanted was released on the same day, if I remember correctly.
It
I
was
can't
very
remember it.
Something like
close.
that. Yeah, it was close.
They were very, very close together, and Most Wanted was like the prequel to the film. So it was like a completely new story. And then this novelization, we should clarify, is called the expanded edition. That's exactly what it was. Like it was an expanded edition of the film. It had the dialogue was a little bit different. The scenes were a little bit different. There was lots of extra little stuff, which I can't wait to get into some of my favorite scenes in this. But it was perfect. Like this movie had a fantastic marketing campaign related to the books. I hope that we continue to see this type of strategy with future Star Wars movies.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, so Kira had one really famous line. They used it in a lot of the trailers. They used it in this book. She says only she knows what Han really is, which she ends up saying is a good guy, right? Is she right? Because we see the evolution of Han now. We see him early. We see him in the middle of his life. We see him at the end. At this point in Han's life, is he a scoundrel? Is he really a good guy? Is he somewhere in the gray area? Meg, let's come to you first for that.
Um, I would have to put him somewhere in the middle just because I think at this point in his life, he's still kind of figuring things out.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I definitely say a little good, a little bad, a little bit of everything.
Okay, which sounds very Han.
Yeah.
Heather, what do you think?
I agree. I think he's more in the middle, but heading towards the good side because his decision to shoot Beckett, and give Enfys the coaxium is definitely a good trait. I mean, he could have just taken off with it himself, gotten paid, but he thought about the greater good. I mean, in most situations, I think he would mostly fend for himself, just his survival instincts. But well, at least now when he can, he'll do what's right.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting that you see him essentially murder somebody and then use it to do something good by giving back to to Enfys Nest and her whole crew. Corey, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that Han Solo that we get in this book and in the film is like the definitely good guy Han Solo. Like I don't think he has like a bad bone in his body at this point. Like I think he killed Beckett out of self defense, and like I think this is the good guy. In fact, I think later is when we get the darker, shoot Greedo in cold blood and toss a coin to the bartender. I think we get that later, right? So like he hasn't become that jaded yet. So I feel like he's definitely the good guy here. I mean, he's still a kid for crying out loud.
Sure. Sorry about the mess. Eric?
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. With Corey on that. I mean, up until Kira flies away at the end, his whole thing is I'm gonna get the girl and I'm gonna have a normal life. Like the entire movie is all to just find normalcy. He doesn't want to be a smuggler. He doesn't want to do any of these things. He is gonna get Kira and they're gonna be happy together. Um, and only at the end, I mean, one of my favorite shots in the movie is that little smirk he gives to Chewbacca when Enfys says, "Come with us, come fight," and he just goes, "Nah." That's the first bit of, okay, maybe he's going to go down this path that I really see. And I think that the voice that Lafferty gives Han in this novelization speaks to that, because it's a lot of hope. It's a lot of like grief that he legitimately feels for losing people like Val and Rio. Like, he really feels these things, and that's I think expanded upon, no pun intended, in this book super well.
Yeah, no, I'd have to agree. So then, with what we see in this book, if you guys go and either watch Solo, or really what I'm more interested in is when you go back and watch the original trilogy now, or The Force Awakens. I don't know if anyone here has, but how is this book and this story going to change how you view Han in those stories, if at all? Heather, let's start with you.
Corey talking about like how in this novel he's still a kid, so he does what's right, and then later on he becomes, sort of jaded. I think he actually goes back to his good side during the time of like The Force Awakens. I mean, he didn't have to help Rey, he didn't have to take part in the resistance, but he did, because he's thinking about the greater good again. And maybe that's because, that's after he had a family and he's been able to experience all that. So I'm seeing it as a wave, like he goes from good, maybe bad, back to good.
Okay, very interesting. Corey?
Yeah, I could totally get that. I don't really know. I don't know that it really changes my perception of him a lot in the new films. In fact, I think I remember correctly. I walked out of the theater and I said that. Like, I was like, this movie was super fun and I really loved it, and I don't think it really changes anything. I think that's the funness of it, is we just have drastic impacts for the big picture. Except for Maul, that was sort of unique, and that could have longer lasting consequences. But yeah.
Wait, what? Darth Maul was in this?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. Meg, what do you think? Does this change how you watch the original trilogy?
No, I don't think so. I think it was definitely really cool to see a young Han on screen, and see this part of his life and see kind of some of the things that came before. But I was actually watching A New Hope. I think it was a week ago, and nothing really changed for me.
Awesome. Eric, anything change?
Honestly, yeah, a little bit. Only because I grew up a Luke guy. When I played with my buddies, I was always Luke. I didn't fight for Han. But now I feel like with Last Shot, Most Wanted, Solo, the novelization, and I've started to read the Crispin books, I'm like, oh my god, Han is incredible. And I've loved him forever, but I think this has kind of put him higher in my ranks, and I'm way more connected to him. And now, like, when he meets Leia, I think of him kissing Kira in the hallway in Corellia, and I think of him seeing her on the Falcon and then looking at Leia on the Falcon. So like that kind of stuff now harkens back for me, and this kind of makes him even better in my eyes.
We should clarify too. We're talking, when we say Crispin, we're talking about the AC Crispin Han Solo trilogy, which is it's a Legends trilogy. It's super old. It was released back in the 80s, maybe the 90s. Charles, it's your
90s.
Yeah,
I think 97 actually. I think was when Paradise Snare came out, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
So Paradise Snare is the first. It is my favorite book,
isn't it?
It is my favorite book. We're going to touch on that later. Eric's in the middle of reading them, and I know he's a big fan too. Several of y'all are. So one thing I do want to touch on is that now we're viewing Han's early life in light of his death. And Heather, you kind of touched on this. I thought it was really, really interesting how they really represented Han in Solo as sort of the young slapdash optimist. He always has a plan, and it seems to work out, even if it's not how he intended it to work out. You look at that, and then you go look at his death and what he essentially did. Spoiler alert for anyone that is watching this that hasn't seen TFA. What are you doing? But he essentially walks out on a bridge defenseless to an apprentice of the dark side and says, please. Like, that is his plan. And it doesn't work for him that time, and that's probably how Han always needed to die, right? It was one of his plans not going well. But I just thought that was beautiful to think about. But Han is part of one of the dynamic duos of the Star Wars universe. His other hairy half, Chewbacca, he had a lot of interesting parts in this book outside of him showering and having a lot of personal hygiene issues going on, which were certainly highlighted. But one thing that I wanted to draw your attention to, because it was a big change from what we've seen in previous books. If you guys do have your book and you're following along, this is on page 203. It is when they are escaping from Kessel, and it's some of Chewie's thoughts about Han. So it says, quote, "The young human didn't have anyone. Han had helped Chewbacca get free of Mimban. He had become a companion, accepting the friendship of another species with ease instead of the usual discomfort Chewbacca sensed in humans." So that was kind of referencing why Chewie felt like he needed to go with Han. Basically, he didn't have anyone. It wasn't Han saved his life and now he has a life debt and he's going to be here because
Thank
he has
God.
to be. Yes, he's not a slave. He is there because he saw something that he appreciated in Han, regardless of their barriers in communication or culture or all these things, and he decided to stick by him. What does that do for you guys, for the character, for their relationship? Meg, let's start with you.
I like it. I mean, I like I like the fact that now it's like Chewie's there because he wants to be there, and it's 100% his choice to be there, and the fact that he's there because he wants maybe to protect Han, but maybe just to be there, and so he's not alone. There's something about that when I read that, it made me feel good.
Yeah, absolutely. Eric?
Yeah, same. I love it a lot. I think it actually strengthens. I mean, I would say it strengthens their friendship, but I don't know if anything can really be stronger than Han and Chewie, anyway. But I think it says a lot for Han that when we think back, Han never really discriminates against any aliens unless they're trying to kill him. He accepts everyone for who they are, and he'll size you up. He doesn't care. And even to the point where when Chewbacca is about to kill him as the Beast, he's like, "Cool, I'll speak Sherwook. We'll get out of here together, and then you'll come with me." Like, he's like, "We're both getting out of here, no question." And I think that now that we've seen in Legends and canon how much the Wookiees are discriminated against and enslaved and really treated horrifically by all manners of species, mostly humans. The fact that Han is so selfless with Chewie makes sense, and it makes sense why Chewie would feel such a kinship literally to him and make him part of his tribe, and I think it's super beautiful.
Yeah, mentioning the line tribe, family, what's the difference is essentially what they said. Corey, I heard you say thank God, so you have some thoughts on this.
I'm really glad that they didn't use the whole life debt thing. That's just sort of overdone, and everyone has always said that. And because it wasn't in the films, it's never been canon. Like that Chewie had a life debt. And I remember when my first real experience with the concept of life debt with the Wookiee was in the KOTOR games. I can't remember which one it was. It wasn't it was the second one. It was the second KOTOR game where you fight that Wookiee in the arena on, I guess it's Nar Shaddaa, I think is where you fight him, and you can use the dark side to you get dark side points for making him your slave with the life debt. And basically all you have to do to make him your slave is be like, "Hey man, you owe me now." And I just thought that was it was such a stupid concept. This is the part of the Wookiee culture. They're ancient, and if you do them a solid, they have to be your slave for the rest of their life. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. Okay. All right,
Yeah.
Heather, are you of like mind?
Yeah, I don't know where I got the whole life debt thing. Maybe it's because other people were talking about it. But yeah, I was under the impression that Chewie was with Han for that reason. And like Corey was saying, that's basically slavery, and I'm not into that. But when the Solo movie came out, their whole fake fight in the pit, that was really cute and everything. But Chewie's reason for staying with Han obviously wasn't that clear in the movie because I don't think any of us speak Shiriwook. So it was kind of like, he grunts at somebody else and then stays with Han, and I'm like, but why? Is it just like something forced because Han and Chewie have to be together? So I really did like that part of this novel where we finally get that explanation, and that explanation of, how tribe and family is so important to Wookiees, and Chewie sees that Han doesn't have any family. I'm happy with that reason for Chewie sticking with Han.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point that if you watch Solo and something maybe didn't make sense, or you want more of an explanation, this book is absolutely full of that. I mean, you get so much more background, so much more explanation as to what's going on, and we're gonna dive into some more of that as well. I do want to talk about the last scoundrel that we had from the original trilogy, Lando. Because this obviously does a lot for his character as well. This book and movie, this story in general, really plays up the Billy D version of Lando, if you will, the cape wearing womanizer, if you will.
Yeah.
What did you think of his role in this book? Did outside of being the one with the Falcon, what did he bring to the story as Lando? Corey, let's start with you.
I will say now what I said coming out of the Solo film, and I hope this is not too controversial. I feel like as in the marketing team, I feel like everyone really overhyped the fact that what's his name? He played Lando. I can't remember his name.
Donald Glover.
Yes, the Donald Glover. They really hyped up the fact that Glover was playing Lando, and he was already kind of famous up to this point. And it was like Alden was the big question, right? It was like everybody was so worried that it wasn't going to be like the original Han Solo. So everybody was kind of, I feel like at least everybody was sort of dreading Alden's performance as Solo and super stoked about Glover. And walking out of the theater, I was more impressed with Alden's performance than I was Glover's performance. Like Glover was good, it was great in the film and everything. It just didn't blow me away. And I don't know if that's a hype thing, if it was like because we were all hyped that it was going to be Glover. I don't know, but I thought the book did a better job of sort of smoothing it out a little bit. Like it felt more like the original Lando to me. Like it was more ladies' man. He was more smooth. He wasn't so. I like the fact that he was a little more sort of like goofy about like his fashion and stuff in the book than I feel like I got from the film. Like I think it came back to capes. It must have talked about capes like 20 times.
It was like a whole page on capes.
Yeah.
Yes, like there was so much cape
Like
discussion in this
the
book.
color and style, yeah.
When to wear which cape.
Yes.
Yeah.
I guess it's useful information if you wear capes.
True.
Which I do on occasion, so much appreciated. Heather, so what did Lando do in this story for you?
Like compared to the novel, I don't think they really expanded on him too much, aside from the fact that he really values his material items, like the capes and the shampoo and stuff. But other than that, it seemed to be pretty much the same. And all of you talking about Billy D. Lando, I was able to see Donald Glover Lando in this novel.
Okay.
Yeah. But that's pretty much all I got from it.
Okay, Meg?
Definitely book Lando over movie Lando for me.
Okay.
And I don't really know why. I think I kind of feel like it was just easier for me to kind of like I don't know, like see his character and get, I guess, understand his character better through reading the book than the movie. I thought, movie Lando was great, but the extra added things definitely added to his character, and I appreciated that. I think that was really well done.
Sure. Eric, did he bring anything for you?
I think the most I got out of Lando, because I loved him in the film, I really did. The most I got was his new stuff with L3 and the Falcon. And I know we'll get to some of the added stuff. But
Absolutely.
The last scene that he has as he's flying away from Savareen, and he gets that last moment with L3, I think I really got to see some of that vulnerability we got when Lando was holding her as she died. was one of my favorite moments.
Mhm.
And we really got to see his like, well, here's my next chapter of my life. I need to go on, and there's a little bit of a change now. Like
Mhm.
he's also
Mhm.
been affected. So I think that scene almost more than anything else in the book kind of redefined that character for me and enhanced him in a way that when I see in Empire Han coming back with the Falcon, now I can think of Lando looking and knowing L3 is in there and he doesn't have her anymore. And I think that might hit me a little differently.
Very cool. Yeah. And perfect segue, because my next question is, when you're watching Empire, obviously Lando kind of betrays Han, and everyone turns it over to Vader, kind of turns it around later. But what does Lando's decision to leave Savareen after Han is like, yeah, I got like 30 mercenaries in this ship over here, and then the ship just takes off? I mean, what does that add to that moment in Empire when it seems like he's betraying him again? Because it seems like maybe there's been a history of this, even more so than we knew. Heather, what do you think about that?
Well, to me, it was still an act of betrayal because he sees the homing beacon and he thinks, Dryden is coming and I don't want to be here for that, so he takes off. So I really don't see too much of a difference between like this Lando and the one that we see in Empire, except that in Empire he makes up for it, but in this case it's just all for himself.
Yeah, makes you wonder. Han must have been really desperate to go to him in the first place. Corey, what do you think about that?
I really haven't given that scene much thought until you brought it up. But I think it actually kind of gives. That was sort of a joke in the film. At least I felt like that was what it was meant for, because it was delivered right at the end of a punchline, right? Like it was like, I got 30 guys in this thing, and then the thing flies off, right? So it was meant to be humor, but like that's kind of that kind of has some deep value to it, actually. Like Lando was like, screw this, I'm out, and just left. Like after all the crap that they'd been through together, he was just gone. He just abandoned them on this planet like that. Like they didn't have any other transportation at all, and all these people looked like, I mean, they looked like a fairly primitive people that were hanging out on this planet. So like he like straight up abandoned them, and I mean that wasn't really. They didn't showcase that in the film really at all, but I don't know. Maybe Lando sucks.
You heard it here first.
Maybe Lando sucks. Yes. Okay, and Meg?
What was the question?
Just how does does this make you question, why does Han even seem to go to Lando in the first place in Empire? It seems like maybe there's a history of betrayal there.
I mean, I guess my only thought on that is like a lot of time has passed. I mean, maybe, does Han feel like, oh, maybe I can just forgive and forget for now? I don't know.
Water under the bridge.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So next character I want to talk about, which it's crazy that we've gotten this far and not really touched on it yet, is Kira. The quote that I just want to lead off with is actually from L3, posed to Kira. What is your restraining bolt? That they really hammered that line and kept calling back to it, and that's something that we didn't really get in the movie at all, and I thought added a ton to this book in particular. So I do want to draw your attention to another quote on page 165, and then we'll talk about this. It says that, speaking about Kira and Dryden's relationship, the chain that attached them wasn't one of physical links, but something she knew she could never break. Okay, what are they talking about in your mind? What is Kira's restraining bolt, and is she free of it by the end of this book? I know that's a super loaded question, but give me your thoughts on that. Corey, I'm going to come to you first.
Yeah, so I'm glad you let me go first on this. So I have 3 sections of this book. Like I never dog-ear pages, but I have 3 pages dog-eared in this book, and the first ones that I have dog-eared is related to this a little bit. So everything we got about Kira in this book is the reason that you read novelizations. Like,
yes.
If you've never read a film novelization, The Last Jedi, we had sort of mixed opinions about it at Youtini. We didn't talk a whole lot about it. We didn't do a roundtable yet. But we didn't love the Last Jedi novelization the way that a lot of us loved a lot of the Legends novelizations. But this solo novelization was fantastic. It really added so much to the film. It really added. It's all fresh in our minds. We just watched it, but this felt like a different movie when we were reading it, and everything we got about Kira really answered a lot about her character. You were talking about that quote on page 165. Starting on page, where's my thing at? It's yeah, okay, right. I think it's the same dialogue when it's the scene that in the film is when L3 is hanging out with Kira in the cockpit alone. And it was kind of a funny scene in the movie and they didn't elaborate on it. But this scene in the book answered so many questions about Kira for me. So like, I remember walking out of the theater thinking like, I don't understand Kira's relationship. Like, what is her deal with Dryden Voss? Is she like a slave? Is it some weird sex romance thing going on? Like, what are they trying to tell us? Like, is it something weird? Because that's kind of how it was implied a little bit. Like, and the book sort of answers that question for us. Like, it doesn't seem like there's a weird relationship. It seems like Kira has essentially been a cold-blooded killer for Dryden, and that's the stuff that she's talking about when she tells Han that he wouldn't be okay with the things that she's done. Because there was too much vagueness in that it made me uncomfortable. I was like, I don't know what the deal is with her. And this whole scene, what essentially happens is L3 basically fishes out of Kira like what has happened between when Han left her on Corellia and what did she do for Dryden. In fact, L3 asked Kira point blank. It's my favorite line in the whole book. She says, how long was it until Dryden made you kill somebody in front of him? And I was like, holy crap, that is like
unprompted. Like she just
yes, it was just out of nowhere. I'm like, how is this not in the film? This would have been the best scene in the whole movie. Like, yeah, it was such a dark concept, and like we really just got everything about Kira's background and what happened and why she was with Dryden. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. And what you're referencing, along with that quote that I mentioned, you get the entire backstory of Kira.
Totally.
Talking about how she was actually sold by Proxima after everything that went down in with Han on Corellia, how she went to, I think there was a slaver before Dryden, and then she was sold to Dryden. I mean, she had so much rich backstory that you only get when you read the book. Eric, what did that do for the character?
Oh man, like Corey said, I'm really glad that we get to talk about this because I feel like I know so much about Kira now based on this novelization and Most Wanted, and she was probably one of, if not my favorite character coming out of the movie. Now she's like definitely my favorite. I love that she had that scene with L3 because there is also a part of that conversation that is important because we have L3, a droid who usually has a restraining bolt, and then we have Kira, who is a woman that's enslaved, that is like, you know, all these men and all these people are trying to take her down, and we get to see how much of a survivor she is. And she has another person that was enslaved before taking a bolt off that says, hey, you are not what these people tried to make you. You are you have value, you have strength, and it makes Kira, we kind of get to have that epiphany along with her in this novel of, yeah, you did all these horrible things, but never once did I think Kira was, you know, unfeeling or unwavering. You know, even when I saw the movie, I heard people say like, oh, she left Han. She like betrayed him at the end. They're all the same. I'm like, did you? Not the movie I saw. She makes the hardest decisions in this movie and this book, and clearly in her life before that. And I think that she is the epitome of a survivor and a fighter. And I love her so much. And I'm so glad that she and L3 got to have more of those scenes to flesh out that backstory with someone who could actually identify with that, as opposed to Han being like, so what do you do? Which I don't feel like would have had the same weight.
Yeah. And you bring up a great point that it wasn't really that she was flying away in a selfish way. She was sort of sacrificing herself for Han. She tells Maul, who we'll get to, that Beckett betrayed them and that he's still out there, even though she knows that that's not true. If she had left with Han, Maul was coming.
Exactly. Like she has decided, I will be the head of a crime syndicate for possibly the rest of her entire life, because if I don't, the next leader will kill Han.
Yeah.
And I can keep them away, and I will dedicate my life to that for years. And you're telling me that she doesn't love him anymore? Come on. That's amazing. I love Kira. Anyway.
So
I'm
Heather,
very passionate about Kira.
yeah, I see it. I love it. Heather, I'm going to come to you and get your thoughts on Kira. And something that I would really love to hear is, I mentioned this quote. It says, the attachment of Kira and Dryden was not one of physical links. We also see this weird thing that happens to Dryden, right, with these red lines that appear on his face. Is that what they're referring to? Is that her restraining bolt, or are they just referring to her situation of slavery? I know that's a lot, but what do you think about all of that?
I think they're referring to her position. And before I forget, I just want to say, Eric, I'm so glad that you talked about like why Kira took over as head of the whole crime group thing, because I never did think that she was doing it for Han. I thought that maybe she felt like there's no way she could get away from Crimson Dawn, so she decided might as well be an authority figure. So I'm really glad you said that, because I like that part a lot more now. But talking about Kira's position, I'm really glad that we have this extra explanation about her backstory now. But it kind of makes me wonder if what she went through with Dryden was enough to keep her in that position, because we know that she had a very hard life growing up, and she's already done all kinds of things for Lady Proxima. So she's clearly a very strong and independent woman. So the fact that she's kind of clinging on to Dryden, I don't know if I'm still satisfied. Like, is the fact that, she killed someone, I mean, was that first murder like her shackle? Is that when it happened? I'm still not quite sure, but the fact that Han shows up later in the novel and she's not automatically thinking like, maybe I can finally get out of this. Instead, she hesitates. I don't know. I just think that was kind of weird on her part.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And Meg, what about the character of Kira? What was her restraining bolt? What did you like about her?
I definitely like her character a lot more after having read the book. Wasn't sure about, her ending at the end of the movie, but definitely makes a lot more sense to me now, especially after we've been talking here. But I really think that, and we, don't know exactly what Kira was thinking or what she was going through before Han showed up. But I think in my mind, when Han did show up, that was kind of when she started to think, maybe I have to stay in this to kind of protect him or to kind of keep him away from what this is. That's kind of just what has stuck in my mind, is like, even though, they can't be together, she says, I'm going to walk away. It's still for him, in a way. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I just want to go around. This is a yes or no question. We'll hear from everyone. Is the last time that Kira saw Han when she's flying away on Dryden's yacht and she looks out the window and sees him standing there in the sands on Savareen? We'll just go in the same order that we started. Corey, was that the last time they saw each other?
Oh man, that's a hard question.
I know. I know.
I don't know. I don't have an answer.
You can say I don't know. It's a yes or I don't know. Heather, last time?
I want it to be a yes, because I really like to keep things tragic like that. But yeah, I really, really want to say yes.
Okay. Meg, was that the last time?
I want to say no, just because I want there to be more.
Sure. Eric?
It's the last time he sees her. It's not the last time she sees him.
I like it. I like it
too.
Okay, and so let's just move right along to Darth Maul here quickly. We have to touch on him and his cameo, because I'm pretty sure anyone that's not following spoilery websites and whatnot did not see that coming in the movie. So obviously you did when you read the book, but the way that they presented it was still a lot of fun, and they left it a question for at least the beginning there. why Maul, I guess, is the first question. Why is Maul the right person to pull in here? And what does he do with Kira when she arrives on Dathomir? Basically, the last thing he says is, come see me on Dathomir. We're going to be working together much more closely, I think are the exact words that he says. Let's start with you, Meg. Why Darth Maul, and what is he going to do from here?
Oh, why Maul? I really don't know. I guess like if you like, I went into the movie knowing that he was in Rebels, and so I guess if you think of like the timeline, like he had to be doing something at this point in time. I don't know why they chose him, but I guess I don't know what he's gonna do with Kira, but something bad.
Something not good, Eric?
Also a fan of Rebels myself. Maul is probably one of my most improved characters thanks to the animated series. His arcs are great, and I think it tracks with how he handled the whole stuff on Mandalore. He is a good kind of natural leader in the shadows. And to me, it makes sense that his entire life is really based around finding Kenobi and getting revenge. So what better way to do that than to run a syndicate that has cells on tons and tons and tons of planets, so you have ears everywhere. So to me, in my headcanon, for lack of a better phrase, he and Kira just become good business partners. I don't think Maul really cares that much about spice and slavery, so some of Kira's morality can probably bleed into Crimson Dawn a little bit to kind of stop that. And I think Maul is just worried about results and about information more than anything else. So I think that's why it makes a little sense to me.
Sure. Corey?
I will kind of say actually opposite of you, Eric, in that I feel like animation ruined Maul for me. And like I'm coming from this as a well-read reader of Legends. Like I hate to always be that guy, but like there was a lot of good
books, dude.
I know.
You're well read.
There's a lot of good content that's got Maul in it in Legend stuff. There's a couple of books about him in general. There's a comic series about him. He was in Plagueis. If you guys read Plagueis, he had some brief stuff in Plagueis. And he's a very mysterious, power-seeking individual. And I remember the first time I watched through the Clone Wars when they did this whole spider got cut in half thing. I was just like, what the heck? In fact, immediately after seeing it, I was on my way to medical school at that point, and like I think I was a junior in college when I saw that episode for the first time. I didn't watch it as a young lad like a lot of people did. I didn't see it until I was in college, and I was like, what is the anatomy of this? So I like looked up Maul and like I put his body like against like images of like the abdomen, and like the lightsaber went through all of his abdominal organs. Like there is no way Star Wars, magic, sci-fi, all that together, there's no way he survived that. So like when they made him an animated character with the whole spider thing, I'm just like, what the heck? So
Star
anyway,
Wars magic is bigger than
it didn't go through his midichlorians though.
Whatever. Oh my god. Yeah, okay, so there's my rant about Darth Maul. Okay, so him in this film, I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. Like, so once I got used to Darth Maul, his role in Clone Wars is amazing. Like, he has a fantastic story arc with the Mandalorians is awesome. Like that whole thing is really cool. The way that he survives that fight with the Emperor in Clone Wars is fantastic. That was a beautiful fight. I loved it. Like when I saw it in the film, when I saw it in the theaters, I wasn't one of the guys who was like, "Oh, what is this?" Like a lot of people were. I was like, "Oh, this is awesome!" Like I was really excited that it was Maul, and the way it was done in the book was great too. Like we get some of Kira's, we get some of the things that are happening in her head when she figures out that he's a Force sensitive kind of guy, and that's where she learned. What's her fighting style called? Teräs Käsi. Yeah, that's where Dryden learned it.
Yeah, is this the first time that they've actually said that what he was using in episode 1 was Teräs Käsi?
Oh yeah.
I don't know. I don't remember if that was in the. It's been a long time since I've read the Maul stuff.
Yeah, so like the Teräs Käsi came initially from the 1997 video game that I never played, but interestingly, I saw when I was kind of doing some research that Gary Whitta, the guy who wrote the final screenplay of Rogue One, he said that the screenplay at one point revealed that Saw Gerrera taught Jyn Erso Terras Kasi. That was actually
Oh
going to be a
wow,
line in the movie.
Oh.
So this has been coming down the pipe, and it finally did find its way here, which I think is really
interesting.
interesting. They've got all these ideas, all these callbacks, and they're just looking for where they can bring them in. But I think this might be the first time. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I assume that's kind of what a lot of the people in the story group do, is like find a lot of the older, back when no one really cared about keeping track of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, okay, what's the most fun stuff we remember? Who played this ridiculous game? Who read that magazine article in '84? And they just get to put it in. Like, that's got to be the most fun thing in the world.
I'm waiting for a trilogy just on Star Wars Pod Racer because that was one of my favorite video games when I was a kid.
Okay. So much fun.
And Heather, how about you? What about Darth Maul? Why him? What did he bring?
So, when I first saw him in the movie, and of course no one was expecting it, but my boyfriend and I immediately, before they even showed his face, we looked at each other and we're like, "That's Sam Witwer. Oh my God, is this really Mo?" And the fact that they mixed him with Ray Park, I was so stoked. That's like the coolest thing that they did. But I think that choosing him, considering the timeline and the situation, I think it was done so perfectly because Corey already said some stuff. I'm not worried about spoilers, but in the Clone Wars, he gets noticed by Palpatine doing all this crime lord stuff, and Palpatine beats him, and he says, I still have use for you. And I think that's where this comes into play. Maul is still working the crime syndicate under Palpatine because, like Kira says, everybody works for somebody, even Maul. Well, she says even Dryden, but under Maul. So I think that it was a very bold decision to put him in this story. But I think for people who watch the Clone Wars and know what's going on, I just think that it was done very well. But then you have the problem of people watching this movie who haven't seen the Clone Wars. The last time they saw Maul was probably back in '99 when The Phantom Menace came out, and it just seems out of place to them. So you run the risk of doing that as well. But
that's not an excuse to be happy, though, and I'll go to my grave saying that. To be unhappy. It's not an excuse to be unhappy. If you're not well learned, it's your own fault.
Yeah. And also, there's also
exactly. I'd rather have this stuff happening.
Yeah, and there's kind of the point where, and this is not meant, this is going to sound elitist, it's not meant to. Like, these Rogue One, Solo, like, these offshoots that are about 2 lines in the opening crawl or a backstory based on books that are 20 years old are kind of made with the assumption that most of the audience is caught up on this stuff. Like, that it's for niche. It's for niche stuff, which I think, like, the
it's
budget,
fan service.
Yeah, and that's fine.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
I really hope they keep doing stuff like that. So we'll see.
Lower budget's fine too. Like, I love it, but if you need to save some money, go for it.
Yeah. Okay, now we've got to touch on L3. I'm just gonna basically ask you guys to tell me all of your thoughts on L3 because we got so much more from her in this. I mean, we learned on page 167 she actually built herself. Basically, her master left her restraining bolt off. She was an astromech or something close to an astromech and just built herself. So we see her independence from very early on. And it just kind of reminded me of how R2 didn't have a big enough imagination, and that all he did when his restraining bolt wasn't on was he ran away into the desert. He could have built himself a body.
His mission.
Did reading Last Shot, for those of you that did that help her character here? And overall, her plight, did you sympathize with it, with her needing to escape from ownership, from slavery, needing to get other droids out of that position as well? And did that make her ending of getting put into the Falcon sad? Was that a failure for her, or did they manage to spin it positive enough for you guys to accept it? Let's start with Heather. I think you had a lot of thoughts on L3.
I do, and not all of them are good.
That's okay. Let's hear them.
If I went straight to watching Solo before reading Last Shot, I honestly would have felt that her presence in the movie was a little forced and out of place. Like, why is she here? Why does Lando care so much for this droid? But the fact that I read Last Shot before seeing the movie, I actually really liked her. I liked her so much to where in the movie when she gets shot, I was literally like, what? No, like I was sad. I didn't want her to be destroyed like that. But um that kind of reinforces how I feel about this novel. I mean, in the movie she gets placed into the ship. Lando says, she's part of the ship now, and I thought that was really cool considering how, in the original trilogy C3PO says something about the Falcon having like a peculiar voice or something like
Oh
that.
yeah.
Yep.
And I would have liked to just leave it at that, but I, with this novelization, I feel like they totally wronged her because she's all about like droids being free, and they made a very big deal about breaking the droids free of that mine. You could even hear the droid's thoughts about like, hey, I'm free, this droid did it, let's help her out, she's like our liberator. And then they put her into the ship, and hearing her thoughts really got to me because she says, like, I don't want to be a slave to the ship. I don't want to do this. And the Falcon and Lando both have to convince her, like, it's not so bad. Your friends need you, it has to happen. There's no other choice. And she's just reluctant about it. And it just made me feel so bad for her. But I don't know.
Yeah.
That's just what I think.
No, that's fair, and they touched on it a lot more. That they didn't gloss over it like they did in the movie. They really said like this is something that L3 probably would not have wanted. Meg,
Yeah.
what were all of your thoughts on that?
I definitely think like knowing more about her backstory explained her quest to free the droids a lot more, which made me like her a lot more. But I also read Last Shot beforehand, which helped too.
Mhm.
I definitely think the book made her transition into the Falcon like way sadder. Like I was actually sad for her. But I think that's a good thing. I think like she could have when she got shot it could have been all over, but she had one other choice, one last chance to kind of continue on, and it's not the way that she would have wanted it to be, but it's something. Doesn't make me feel better about it. I'm still sad, but it is what it is, I guess. Yeah.
Sure. Eric, L3?
Yeah, I'm gonna echo it. A bit of what we've been saying. It definitely makes me sad. It makes me so thankful, though, at the same time that she's there, because her passion for Lando and to help other people all the time. That like she wanted to be free so she could help. That was her thing from the get go, and I think that last scene is sad that she's losing some of the freedom that she had, but she's being able to help more than she ever could if she was just limited by a physical body, and I agree in the movie. The droid rights stuff is a little bit glossed over, but having, to echo, having read Last Shot, understanding that a little more, I brought that in with me, and I can never watch Solo not having read Last Shot. Like I can never be in that mindset. So to me, it's always been kind of a big thing, and I think that I love her as a character so much. I'm really glad that we get these different novels and movies with her in them, and I think that ultimately the way they ended her story made her and Lando's relationship a lot more intense, and made me love the Falcon even more, as well as a ship and as a character.
Yeah.
Another
Corey?
thing I forgot to mention that made me like really mad was, so before L3 fuses with the Falcon, Lando tells her like, at least we have each other, right? But then we know that it doesn't end up that way. So I feel like that was a little bit of injustice on her part too. So okay, go along.
Corey, are you as outraged as Heather?
I'm not really outraged. I'm a little indifferent about L3 as a character. I thought she was pretty interesting, and her independence was definitely fun. But after we've gotten some really great droids. We've gotten Chopper. We've gotten K2. K2 is one of the best characters that's ever been made in Star Wars. Like Rogue One is my favorite film. I've been saying that for a while now. So I like droids a lot, but L3 she didn't really do it for me, man. I don't know. I didn't really love her character that much. Like the droid right things was a little bit goofy to me. I was like, I mean, I get it. I like that's been brought into Star Wars as something new that we've never seen. That's pretty cool. But when she fused with the Falcon, I think that's kind of what really turned me off of her character. Like I've never really thought about like a ship having its own memory, like having its own thoughts, having its own computer processing. Like navigation is always something that's just been like clicked on basically in video games and in movies. You just kind of say where you're going to go. Like if we're going to Yavin, go to Yavin, like it just kind of happens. So like to think about the computer having a voice and it being L3, this really righteous, loud character, like that's the Falcon now. Like I'm just like, I don't know if I like that too much. It kind of weirds me out a little bit. But that aside, she was an interesting character. But I'm not outraged.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting how, I mean, if you think of her as being temperamental, think of the Falcon as being temperamental, like mechanically speaking, that maybe that's where some of that's coming from, and that's why the Falcon is not the most cooperative in the original trilogy. Also thought it was interesting that she is really a unique case because she's all about freeing droids, right? She frees these droids on Kessel, and what's the first thing they do is they're like, what do I do? Give me a command. And she gives them a command and they do it. So are they even free? I don't know. I mean, now they're just listening to someone who's a droid instead of someone who's a human and program them. I don't know.
That life, man.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
We all answer to someone.
Everyone has a supreme leader. So,
yeah.
So I do want to talk about how this book was similar to things that we've seen in Legends. We are a book company, so I think we really do need to talk about this. Heather, you got your spiel on L3. Corey, you had your spiel on Darth Maul and the Clone Wars and all. Everyone's getting their piece. I want to talk about the A.C. Crispin trilogy because this story and in that trilogy have so many similarities that are not small. They are very big plot points, and I just kind of sketched some of them out. So Han is orphaned and works as a criminal in his youth. He ends up in service of the Empire. He rescues Chewbacca, who's been enslaved by the Empire. They go to the Maw, which is still named the Maw in this book, which was a cluster of black holes in A.C. Crispin. This one, it was just one really big black hole. Han wins the Falcon from Lando in a game of Sabacc. This is huge stuff. I mean, a huge portion of this book is an updated version of A.C. Crispin's trilogy.
Totally.
Those of you who have read it or other Legends material with Han, maybe the Brian Daley Han Solo Adventures, what kind of aspects were you seeing, and did you appreciate seeing those things being borrowed so heavily? Eric, I might come to you first since I know you're in the middle of reading these.
Dude, literally read Paradise Snare and then like 2 other books and then Solo and then I'm on Hunt Gambit. Like these are so close together in my actual reading life. And it was amazing because the cadence of writing is also similar. Like Lafferty and Crispin both write Han with such a fun, upbeat way.
Yeah.
Han is passionate. This character, which is funny because I feel like sometimes in the OT and even in Force Awakens, we see Han as a little curmudgeon-y. He doesn't talk much. He's a little sly. This young Han is quick. His heart is on his sleeve for most of the time. Like the second thing we see him do after race in this movie is kiss Kira like hardcore. And in the Crispin trilogy, he loves the women he loves hardcore. Like he is going for it at 1,000. And I think even more so than the plot points, that characteristic is what is tracked so well for me and made me so excited about him now. And
he's charming. They did a good job at telling he's charming, not just grumpy Harrison Ford.
Yeah,
I like really Grumpy Harrison Ford though.
Yeah,
we do too. That's all we've ever got.
Yeah, like I think that what Crispin did so perfectly that translated to this film was that he made Han a character that we wanted to root for, that we could see from like a rambunctious kid that's just trying to figure out how the galaxy works, gets a few lucky breaks and a lot of breaks that aren't so lucky, you know. But he keeps going. No matter what happens for Han Solo, there's always a way out. There's always something. Maybe you get knocked down for a bit. Maybe you got to go get drunk for a while. But at the end of the day, there's always a way out for Han. And this movie brought that to light just as beautifully as the trilogy is so far as I'm reading it. Please don't comment spoilers for Rebel Dawn. Thank you.
Okay, we'll do. Corey, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's been like 10 years since I've read the AC Crispin trilogy. It's been a really, really long time. So like I do remember a lot of it though. Like there's a lot of big pieces that stood out for me in the book, particularly his orphan past. I remember he had a mentor in the old series that was very interesting. I like that they did the same thing where he basically had to go out and steal things and pickpocket and then bring them back. Like that's exactly how it was in the Crispin series. Also, I don't want to give away too much spoilers, Eric, since you haven't finished that entire series, but sort of the relationship he has with the girl. I don't even remember her name in the AC Crispin series. Do you remember it, Charles?
Bria Theron.
Yeah.
Bria. Yeah, his relationship with Bria is very similar to his relationship with Kira, and in the way they sort of leave things at the end of that series, where Bria doesn't necessarily betray Han, but it just doesn't go the way that Han's expecting it, and that's exactly how it happens with Kira in this film. So it is very obvious that not only did the writers of this film, the Kasdan father and son duo, not only did they read those books, like they had to like really study them and pick things that they liked about them, and I mean, there was so much fan service. In fact, I really would like to go back and reread those pretty quick here, because like comparing them to what we have now, that's got to be a heck of an adventure.
Sure, absolutely. Meg, Heather, have you guys read the Crispin series? Do you have any input on that? It's totally okay if you haven't, but I'm sending it to you in the mail so you can start tonight.
I actually have that trilogy coming in my next Youtini box. And,
oh, nice.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I'm excited to read it because, I had no idea that they took a lot of stuff from that trilogy to make this movie. So I'm especially excited to get into it now and compare the two and see exactly like what they took from it and, how it's a bit different.
Yeah. Meg?
I also have not read it, but I am also getting it in my next box. So
fantastic.
Nice.
Oh my god.
we will come back to this then.
The people at Del Rey must be so confused by like this increase in Crispin from us.
Oh yeah. Yeah, totally. I don't know though. I guarantee you sales are up on that series after all this.
Yeah.
I guarantee it.
Maybe we're reading buddies now.
yes.
Yes. There you go.
I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't quickly plug the blog here, because there was just a blog article we put up all about things that are that Heather wrote, that are some things in this book that expanded upon the novel, and one of them was that we find out that the depository in the mountain during the big train job is called the Crispin Imperial Depository, which is
I totally forgot about that.
When I read that,
homage to Crispin.
So excited.
Yeah.
Check out
Obvious homage to him.
Yes, and check out that article on the blog. Heather did a great job with it. That's all about some more fun Easter eggs that are in this exact edition.
Yes. And now, so I do want to mention a couple of other things. We don't have time to talk about all of these, but other things that were EU callbacks that I think are important. When Lando's recording his Calrissian Chronicles, he references the Sharu Temple, the Star Cave Nebula, all of these things that are from L. Neil Smith's Lando novels, that were kind of sort of like Brian Daley's Han Solo novels. We got Tag and Bink. They're on page 59 at the Military Tribunal.
Officially canon now.
Yes. Now, Mimbin, the planet that Han is on as a trooper, infantry trooper, that was actually the planet from Splinter of the Mind's Eye. So that goes way back. It even actually got a shout out. If you go back and watch the Clone Wars all the way back in season 1, there is a hologram that says this next one goes out to the mud jumpers of the 224 slugging it out on Minbin. Keep your heads down and your seals tight, boys. So I mean,
That's funny.
there's so much stuff. The VCX 100, the ship that Han bargains against the Falcon that he doesn't actually have, that's the model of the Ghost. The Colo claw, yes, the Colo
Wow, I did not know
clawfish.
that.
Yes, the Colo clawfish that Dryden offers. That's one of the fish that tries to eat Qui-Gon and Jar Jar and Obi-Wan when they're in the
What
ship
the
on
heck?
the Naboo. And then of course I'm gonna end this with one that Heather sent me. That's really good. Han tells Chewie this is the only time he'll have to wear binders on page 174, and we know that that's coming again in A New Hope. So I mean, Disney's really integrating these things across the board. There are a ton of callbacks. As big fans of the books that we are, as big fans of the books that we know everyone listening is, we've got to really appreciate that. Now, before we go back around and get our 1 to 10s and see if they changed it all and get final comments, I do have to touch on the epilogue because that was the biggest thing that I think we got as an extra. The introduction of Enfys Nest and Jyn Erso. Just quickly, guys, give me your thoughts. We'll go around. Meg, maybe we'll start with you. What did that scene mean to you?
Rebel Rising is one of my favorite books. So for me, that was just amazing, and I loved it. And it definitely sets up and makes you wonder, like, you know, what other motivations did Jyn have, and you know, how much was Enfys Nest, you know, an influence on her, you know, being so young and going through everything that she's been through. Pretty great.
Yeah, absolutely. Heather?
I was super excited to see that part because I just love different aspects of different formats coming together. So seeing Saw and Jin come from Rogue One into Solo, yeah, it was really cool because it's just everybody has an impact on each other. I said something like that at the end of the article that Eric mentioned, like, you know, Maul affects Han and Kira, who in turn affects, you know, Enfys and Jin and Saw. It all lines up, and I just think that's great.
Yeah. Okay, Eric, what did you think of the epilogue?
I loved it. I love Enfys and Jin. I love that just like young women are gonna burn this thing to the ground. I mean, God, between Leia and Jin and Enfys and Rey, I'm like, oh, like I loved it. And then I thought about, like, I had this very stereotypical moment of thinking of my like 14-year-old cousin reading it, and she being like, "Oh my God, it's me and my friends," and like that. I got the feeling that I got when Rey got the lightsaber in Force Awakens, you know? So yeah, it's so cool and so fun. And what the line where Enfys looks to Jin and says, "They will always underestimate you."
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah,
was such
great.
You know, to bring it beyond Star Wars, you know, it's a real thing, and it's really beautiful and cool and strong, and I loved it.
Awesome. Corey?
Yeah, I'll totally echo those things too. Like, it was a great little shout out. I like that we got to see Jyn as a kid again. I will echo Meg in that Rebel Rising is one of the best things in the one of the best pieces in the new canon stuff. If you guys have not read Rebel Rising yet, it needs to be high up on your list. It's a really, really great book. It's no secret that Rogue One's my favorite film. I think I say that every single time we do anything, and it was awesome. Like, Saw Gerrera is an awesome character. Jin's an awesome character. Like, the sheer like power of everything that happened at the end of Rogue One was just unbelievable to me. I loved it so much nostalgia, and I loved it. It was a nice little tie into this book. I do have a confession. I read the epilogue first. We were talking about that before we got started because everybody was hyping it so much. I was like, I can't wait till I finish this book to read the epilogue. So I started with it, and it was great. I'm glad I had not a whole lot to do with the Solo film because it might have ruined something big for me, but it was great. I thought it was awesome.
Yes. And it felt natural. You know, there could be too much connectivity. It could feel forced, but it felt very natural, I thought.
Right.
Okay.
And we also got to see how it got from Enfys Nest to the Rebels, which was a little unclear in the film. Who is Enfys Nest and how are they connected to the Rebels? Well, they know Saw Gerrera. That's why.
That's a great point. Absolutely. Guys, I mean, we could talk for 3 more hours. There's so many questions I have for you, but let's end this here. Let's go around. I want to hear your 1 to 10 rating again. Has this changed it at all? Why or why not? And just any final thoughts, any remarks you have that you didn't get a chance to express thus far. We'll do that in the same order that we opened up. So Corey, we'll start with you.
I will still give Solo a solid 9 out of 10. I thought it was a fantastic film novelization. The film novelizations in general are fairly hit or miss. The older ones are really good. They add a little bit to Return of the Jedi and Empire and A New Hope. Back then, you run into the issue of that things were a little bit different then. They didn't really know where the films were going to go, so they've got some plot errors and things like that, and that kind of makes them fun. The prequel series film novelizations are also really good. Revenge of the Sith. If you've never read the Revenge of the Sith book, it is almost a completely different book. It's almost a completely different than the film. Solo had that for me, which is, in my opinion, what a film novelization should be. It adds extra things to the movie. 9 out of 10. Fantastic.
All right. Great. And Heather, let's come to you next.
Oh yeah, I was next. Okay. So after getting your guys' point of view on certain parts, and after like knowing what was put into the story, all of the references, I'm actually gonna bump it up to a 9.5.
Awesome. Okay.
Nice.
Meg, you're up.
I'm going to bump my 8 up to a 9. I really, really enjoyed this book, and I think if you tend to skip the movie novelizations, definitely make an exception for this one, because it is really great and almost feels like not just something added to the movie, but something almost completely different. So
Awesome. Eric, bring us home.
All right, I'm bringing it up. I'm going to bump up my 9 to a 10 out of 10 for this book.
Wow.
There it
doing
is.
Generous.
I need more Mur Lafferty in Star Wars, so we know you're watching. Thank you. Please get to work on whatever you're doing next. The cadence of the writing was amazing, and I am one of those people that Meg just said. I don't really do the novelizations. I've only read this and Last Jedi. I'm fixing that now. I'm gonna Revenge of the Sith is gonna be
It's
my
next,
next
man.
one.
Fantastic.
Game changer.
And I never knew that I needed this kind of expanded edition before, and I totally do. Go get this if you loved Solo. If you had questions, go get this and then watch Solo again. Yeah, 10 out of 10. I love it.
All right. And I'm going to
because this was actually my first novelization too, and honestly, I kind of just got it because I knew we'd be talking about it, so I read it, and I'm so glad that I did. And you know, Eric, we gotta read Revenge of the Sith together.
I'm so down for all these books that we're doing. Let's do this.
Awesome. And I'm going to stick with a 9 out of 10 only because I don't have the gall to give a 10 that Eric has. I don't know why a 10 is even on my scale. I can't give it.
9 out of 9.
But it's a 9 out of 9, yeah. So, guys, this was a ton of fun. Again, there's so much we could keep talking about, but I'm really glad we all got to sit down and talk about this. Thank you to everyone who has either joined us live or who is listening to this later on the podcast. Thank you guys for checking it out. If you would like to get this book or really any other Star Wars book, or maybe just some Star Wars news in general from our blog or anything like that, head over to youtini.com and we will make sure to hook you up. You can also find us on Facebook. We do have our normal page that's Youtini, and then the Youtini Cantina where we do a whole lot of book talk. Heather runs that whole page, and it's a lot of fun over there. So for everyone here, Corey, I'm going to let you do the sign-off as our founder and CEO.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. As always, may the Force be with you.